Hello everyone, today Half Fan continues to tell 5 stories about life. Please listen. Story 236 Elsa's Winter Light explores the theme of true happiness. In a small, secluded village in Dalarna, Sweden, where red wooden houses nestled amidst snow-covered forests and frozen lakes glistened under the weak winter sun, lived a woman named Elsa. Elsa led a simple life, working at her family's traditional weaving workshop. Winter here was long, with short days and endless nights, often leading people to melancholy. Many villagers were accustomed to passively waiting for happiness to arrive. Like waiting for spring after months of ice. Elsa used to feel that way too. She waited for warmer days, for joyful events. But one day, she read a quote that made her think deeply: happiness is not something ready-made. It comes from your actions. She began to view life differently. She realized she couldn't just wait for the light, she had to create it. Elsa decided to act. On a cold winter morning, when most people were still curled up in warm blankets, Elsa woke up early. She didn't go to work as usual but began to clean and redecorate her weaving workshop. She used leftover yarn to knit colorful small rugs, hung warm lanterns from the ceiling, and placed small green potted plants on the windowsill. She wanted to transform her workspace into a place filled with positive energy. The villagers looked at her with curiosity. What is Elsa doing? They wondered. It's so cold in winter, yet she's so busy. But Elsa paid no mind. She continued to act. She started inviting her neighbors to her workshop in the evenings, not to work but to share tea, knit, and tell stories together. She taught the children how to weave warm scarves. She organized a small performance with Swedish folk songs, where everyone sang and danced together. She began baking fragrant waffles and shared them with elderly neighbors who often felt lonely during the winter. Every action of Elsa, no matter how small, was an effort to create happiness. She didn't wait for joy to knock on her door, she opened that door herself. She didn't wait for sunlight, she lit the lamps herself. She didn't wait for warmth, she radiated it herself. Gradually, a miracle happened. Elsa's weaving workshop became a hub of warmth and joy. Laughter and stories began to fill the cold air. The villagers, who had once been gloomy in the darkness, started to feel their spirits lift. They followed Elsa's example, actively participating in community activities, organizing gatherings, and sharing joy with each other. Winter was still cold, but the atmosphere in the village had warmed considerably. Everyone realized that happiness was not a mystery they had to search for somewhere far away or passively await. Happiness came from their own actions, from helping others, from creating joyful moments, from connecting with one another. Elsa, the woman who once waited for happiness, was now the one radiating it. She had proven that happiness is not a gift bestowed, but something we must create ourselves through our actions, big or small. The winter light didn't just come from the sun, it also came from the heart and actions of every person. The lesson learned. The story of Elsa's winter light profoundly illustrates the theme: happiness is not something ready-made. It comes from your actions. The core lesson here is that happiness is not a passive state we wait for, but a result of deliberate, positive actions we take in life. Elsa did not accept the gloom of winter or people's passive waiting for happiness. She actively created happiness by decorating her workshop, inviting people over, organizing activities, and sharing kindness. These very actions brought joy to her and to the entire community. The inspiring lessons are: actively seek happiness, don't sit around waiting for happiness to come to you. Create it by taking action, even small ones. Happiness comes from giving and connecting, helping others, sharing joy, and building positive relationships are powerful ways to create happiness for yourself and those around you. Create a positive environment. Our surroundings significantly impact our mood. Proactively create a living and working space filled with positive energy. The power of small actions, even small acts of kindness, creativity, or connection can accumulate and create a significant impact on overall happiness. Happiness is a journey, not a destination. It is the result of a continuous series of actions, not something you achieve once and for all.
Story 237 Isabella's Orange Grove explores the power of how we respond to life's events. In a small coastal village in Calabria, southern Italy, where orange trees ripened under the vibrant Mediterranean sun and the sound of waves crashed against the cliffs, lived a woman named Isabella. Isabella did not possess much material wealth, but she owned a small orange grove, inherited from her grandparents. That orange grove was her whole life, where she found joy and peace. Isabella's life was not always smooth. She had faced many difficulties, from crop failures to fierce storms. But no matter what happened, Isabella always held firm to one belief: life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. She didn't let external events define her. She believed that true strength lay in how she confronted them. One year, a sudden and devastating disease swept through the orange groves across Calabria. Isabella's orange trees, her sole source of livelihood, were not spared. Leaves yellowed, fruit fell to the ground, and soon, the entire grove seemed on the verge of death. Fear and despair gripped the village. Many farmers abandoned the groves, seeking another life. They lamented the cruel fate and blamed everything around them. Isabella also felt heartbroken, but instead of complaining or giving up, she chose a different path. She couldn't change the fact that the disease had arrived, but she could change how she reacted to it. She remembered her grandmother's words: "Don't mourn what is lost, but find a way to make what remains bloom." Every morning, while others were still steeped in gloom, Isabella woke up early. She didn't sit and cry, but began to care for her ailing orange trees. She pruned withered branches, carefully fertilized the soil, and watered each tree with love. Neighbors looked at her, shaking their heads in dismay. "She's crazy," they said. "The orange grove is beyond hope." But Isabella didn't let their words discourage her. She continued to act. She spent hours studying old books on orange cultivation, seeking folk remedies, and experimenting with different herbs. She never stopped hoping, never stopped believing in the grove's ability to revive. Slowly, little by little, a miracle occurred. Isabella's orange trees began to show signs of recovery. Fresh green shoots appeared, then small white blossoms began to bloom, spreading a gentle fragrance. Finally, tiny oranges formed and grew, turning golden once more. Isabella's orange grove not only revived but became more lush than ever, a testament to the power of resilience and the positive attitude. The villagers, who had once given up, now came to admire her grove with eyes full of admiration. They no longer complained but learned from Isabella. They realized that it was not fate that determined their lives, but how they faced that fate. Isabella proved that it's not what happens to us that defines us, but how we choose to react. The disease devastated her orange grove, but her reaction with persistence, hope, and faith transformed the tragedy into a triumph, and became an inspiration for the entire community. Isabella's orange grove was not just a place of cultivation, it was a symbol of hope and the strength of the human spirit. The lesson learned. The story of Isabella's orange grove profoundly illustrates the theme: life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. The core lesson here is that while we cannot control everything that happens in life, we absolutely can control how we react to those events. Our attitude and actions will ultimately determine our outcomes and experiences. Isabella faced a disaster, the orange tree disease. But instead of despairing, she chose to react with persistence, effort, and faith. This choice not only helped her overcome adversity but also transformed it into a success story, inspiring others. The inspiring lessons are: the power of attitude. Your attitude towards a situation can completely change its outcome. A positive and proactive attitude can turn challenges into opportunities. Control what you can control. We cannot control everything that happens to us, but we can always control our thoughts, emotions, and actions. Resilience in the face of adversity. Instead of giving up when faced with difficulties, seek the inner strength to keep fighting and find solutions. Success from reaction. Successful people are not those who never encounter problems, but those who are able to react to problems effectively and constructively. Inspire others. How we react to challenges not only shapes our own lives, but can also become a powerful source of inspiration for those around us.
Story 238. Professor Schmidt's machine explores the relationship between technology and people, highlighting the decisive role that people play in shaping how technology is used. In a quaint little town nestled in Germany's Black Forest, where traditional timber-framed houses stood steadfast among towering pine trees and the air always carried the scent of pine and discipline, lived an old professor named Klaus Schmidt. Professor Schmidt was no romantic or artist. He was a brilliant scientist, an ingenious engineer who dedicated his life to building complex and precise machines. To him, every gear, every circuit had a purpose, and connecting them was an art form. However, Professor Schmidt didn't just look at machines, he looked at their impact. He always believed that technology is a tool, but humans are the ones who decide how to use it. He believed that the responsibility of the creator didn't end with creation, but extended to ensuring that their invention served a good purpose. One day, a large technology company from the city approached Professor Schmidt. They wanted him to build a fully automated system to manage and optimize timber extraction in the Black Forest. This system promised a tenfold productivity and almost entirely eliminate the human element. The company offered him a substantial fee and immense fame. Professor Schmidt was intrigued by the technical challenge. He spent months in his laboratory, surrounded by blueprints, microchips, and the whirring of metal. He created an astonishingly efficient and complex machine system that could automatically identify trees to fell, transport timber, and even plant new trees. Technologically, it was a masterpiece. However, as the machine neared completion, Professor Schmidt felt a sense of unease. He looked out his window, seeing the local loggers, who had spent their lives connected to the Black Forest. They were not just timber harvesters, they were forest guardians, people who understood the delicate balance of the ecosystem, who passed down knowledge from generation to generation. His machine would take away their livelihoods and break the deep bond between humans and nature. Professor Schmidt faced a dilemma. He could complete the contract, receive the money and fame, but he would have to confront the ethical consequences. He remembered the words he had always cherished: technology is a tool, but humans are the ones who decide how to use it. He made a bold decision. Instead of building a fully automated system, he modified his design. He transformed his machine into a supportive tool, a companion rather than a replacement. He retained the functions of efficiently identifying trees for felling and timber transport, but he completely removed the automation of tree felling and planting. Instead, he designed the machine to provide precise data on tree health, growth rates, and areas needing conservation, helping the loggers make better decisions. When he presented the final version to the tech company, they were disappointed. "Professor," they said, "this is not what we asked for. It still requires humans." Professor Schmidt smiled. "That's right," he said, "because the Black Forest is more than just timber. It is a heritage, and my technology will help humans protect that heritage, instead of destroying it. This machine is not meant to replace, but to enhance human capabilities." The company reluctantly accepted, and a miracle happened. The loggers, instead of losing their jobs, became more efficient, more knowledgeable, and better able to protect the forest. They used Professor Schmidt's technology to gather data, make sustainable decisions, and ensure that the Black Forest would continue to thrive for future generations. Professor Schmidt did not receive the enormous fee or international fame he could have had. But he gained something far more valuable: the respect of his community and peace of mind. He had proven that technology is not an inert entity, but a powerful tool, shaped by human will and ethics. In responsible hands, technology can become a force for good to serve humanity and protect the world. The lesson learned. The story of Professor Schmidt's machine profoundly illustrates the theme. Technology is a tool, but humans are the ones who decide how to use it. The core lesson here is that technology itself is neutral. Its value and impact depend entirely on the intentions, ethics, and choices made by humans in its use. Professor Schmidt had the opportunity to create a fully automated machine, but he chose to redesign it so that technology served humans and the environment, rather than replacing or harming them. This demonstrates the decisive role of human consciousness in shaping the impact of technology. The inspiring lessons are: the responsibility of technology creators. Those who develop technology have a significant ethical responsibility to consider the social and environmental impact of their inventions. Humans at the center, technology should be used to enhance human capabilities, not to replace or diminish their role. Ethics in technology. The development and application of technology must be guided by ethical principles, considering long-term benefits for society and the planet. Technology is a problem-solving tool, not the ultimate solution. Technology can provide powerful means, but human wisdom, judgment, and ethics are essential to make sound decisions. Choosing how to use technology. Even if a technology has the capability to do something, we still have the power to choose how and for what purpose to use it to serve the common good.
Story 239. The Taste of the Night Market highlights the value of sharing and community spirit in a modern, multicultural society. In a bustling high-rise apartment complex in Singapore, where neon lights shone brightly and the urban hum never ceased, lived an elderly lady named MDM. Lee. She lived in a small, neat apartment and had spent her life cooking traditional family dishes. She wasn't materially wealthy, owning only a modest apartment and a few ancient recipes passed down through generations. She often brought her homemade cakes and snacks to the local night market to sell, earning a little extra money and keeping herself busy. MDM. Lee always believed in a simple yet profound philosophy: people are not what they have, but what they share. She believed that a person's true worth lay not in accumulated possessions, but in what they contributed and shared with the community. She never kept her secrets to herself, always willing to share recipes and cooking tips with anyone who asked. One year, the traditional night market where MDM. Lee sold her goods faced the threat of closure to make way for a modern shopping mall. This news worried many vendors and residents in the area, as the night market was not only a livelihood but also a cultural hub, a place where people met, chatted, and shared stories. Many felt helpless, lamenting the inevitable change. MDM. Lee was sad too, but she didn't give up. Instead of passively awaiting fate, she chose to act based on her conviction. She knew she didn't have the power or money to stop the project, but she could share what she had, the love and connection the night market had fostered. She came up with an idea. She didn't just cook food to sell anymore. Every evening, she started making extra small portions of food, free of charge, and invited other vendors and residents in the market to her stall. She shared stories about the origins of the dishes, about fond memories at the night market, and about how the vendors had helped each other over the years. She began organizing small cooking sessions right at her stall, inviting everyone to learn how to make traditional dishes together. At first, people were surprised. What is MDM. Lee doing? They wondered. She's giving away what she makes. But gradually, something magical happened. Laughter and stories began to fill the market. Other vendors, who had previously focused only on their own sales, started to follow MDM. Lee's example. They shared recipes, shared business experiences, and even shared ingredients with each other. The night market was no longer just a place to buy and sell. It became a strong community, where people bonded and supported each other. When the developers came to survey the area, they were astonished. They saw a night market that was not only bustling with customers, but also brimming with laughter, sharing, and a strong sense of community never before seen. They saw vendors who were not competing but cooperating, helping each other. They saw MDM. Lee teaching a group of young people how to make cakes, and a street artist sketching the vibrant market scene. Impressed by this unique spirit, the developers changed their plans. Instead of demolishing the market, they decided to integrate it into the design of the new shopping mall, creating a modern night market space that still retained its traditional charm and community spirit. MDM. Lee, the small woman with her street stall, had not used money or power. She had used her sharing to change a major decision. MDM. Lee did not become a millionaire, but she became a symbol of sharing and humanity in modern Singapore. She proved that a person's worth is not measured by the amount of possessions they accumulate, but by what they are willing to share to create a better world for everyone. The lesson learned. The story of the taste of the night market profoundly illustrates the theme: people are not what they have, but what they share. The core lesson here is that the true value of an individual and a community does not lie in material wealth or individual achievements, but in the spirit of sharing, connection, and the contributions they make to each other. MDM. Lee faced a big problem, the night market's closure. But instead of despairing or thinking only of herself, she chose to act through sharing. This action not only saved the night market, but also transformed it into a symbol of a strong and compassionate community, proving that sharing can create value far beyond what material possessions can offer. The inspiring lessons are: the power of generosity, even when you have little. Sharing what you possess, knowledge, skills, kindness, can create unexpected impacts. Community building through sharing. Sharing is the foundation for building lasting relationships and a united, supportive community. The intangible value of human connection. True happiness and meaning often come from human connections and contributions that cannot be measured by money. Change from within, instead of waiting for large external solutions. Sometimes the smallest acts of sharing from individuals can create significant change. People are assets. The most valuable asset of a society is not its tall buildings or material wealth, but its people who know how to love, care, and share with one another.
Story 240. The second-hand bookshop on Baker Street explores the depth of love through action and care. On the bustling and ancient Baker Street in London, where legendary black taxis glided by and the scent of Earl Grey tea wafted from small tea houses, stood a humble old bookshop named The Forgotten Corner. The owner was Mr. Arthur, an elderly man with a silvery beard and deep blue eyes that held countless stories. Mr. Arthur didn't run the bookshop for profit. He did it out of love for books and the people who had once read them. Mr. Arthur had lived a life full of ups and downs, but he always believed that true love was not flowery words or fleeting emotions, but continuous dedication and care. He often reminded himself, and sometimes his young customers, of a saying he cherished: love is not a feeling, but action and care. For him, love was spending time meticulously organizing an old book, patiently listening to a customer's story, or brewing a warm cup of tea for an old friend. A harsh winter descended upon London. Heavy snow fell, blanketing every street, and the biting cold made people reluctant to go out. Mr. Arthur's bookshop became deserted. He didn't have enough money to heat the entire shop, and the worry of having to close weighed heavily on him. He also felt lonely, as his beloved wife had passed away years ago, and he often recalled their afternoons spent reading together by the fireplace. While many complained about the weather and the hardships, Mr. Arthur chose a different path. He couldn't change the weather, but he could change how he reacted to it. He remembered the words he had always believed in: love is action and care. Every morning, instead of waiting for customers, Mr. Arthur woke up earlier. He lit the small fireplace in the corner of the shop, where a few old leather armchairs sat. He brewed a fragrant pot of Earl Grey tea and placed a few ginger biscuits on the table. He didn't open the shop to sell books. He opened it to create a warm space, a refuge for anyone in need. The people of the neighborhood, accustomed to the cold and loneliness of winter, began to find their way to The Forgotten Corner. They didn't come to buy books, but to warm up, to sip hot tea, and to chat. A young student came to read textbooks, an elderly neighbor came to knit, a homeless man came to find a bit of warmth. Mr. Arthur didn't ask many questions, just smiled and served tea. He cared for them with his presence, with the warmth of the space, and with the stories he was willing to share. Mr. Arthur's bookshop was no longer just a place of commerce, it became a center of warmth, humanity, and sharing. No one felt lonely or desperate anymore. They realized that love was not empty words, but small acts of kindness and care. When winter passed, and the warm sunshine returned to London, Mr. Arthur's bookshop not only survived but became more renowned than ever. Customers not only bought books but also volunteered to help him arrange shelves and clean the shop. They repaid him not with money, but with deep affection and gratitude. Mr. Arthur didn't become wealthy, but he gained a far greater fortune: the love and respect of the entire community. He had proven that love is not a frivolous emotion, but a tangible force manifested through concrete actions and sincere care that we extend to one another. Mr. Arthur's Forgotten Corner was not just a bookshop, it was a home of love, built with acts of kindness and endless sharing. The lesson learned. The story of the old bookshop on Baker Street profoundly illustrates the theme: love is not a feeling, but action and care. The core lesson here is that true love is not merely fleeting words or emotions, but it is most clearly and powerfully expressed through concrete actions, constant care, concern, and unwavering dedication to others. Mr. Arthur, when faced with the loneliness and hardship of winter, didn't just complain but chose to act with love and care. He transformed his bookshop into a warm place where people could find comfort and connection. These very actions brought joy to him and to the entire community, proving that love is a verb, not a noun. The inspiring lessons are: love expressed through action, don't just speak words of love, demonstrate it through concrete actions, no matter how small. Care is the foundation of love, lasting love is built on mutual concern, understanding, and care in all circumstances. Transcending fleeting emotions, emotions can change, but actions and care demonstrate a deeper commitment. Creating value through sharing, love is not just a personal emotion but also about creating a positive, warm environment for those around you. Happiness from giving. When we dedicate our time and effort to caring for others, we also find joy and meaning for ourselves. Thank you for listening. Goodbye and see you in the next short stories about life.